F5. All right. So today's lecture is on consultants. The first half of the semester was really about all the stuff that's leading up to a project starting, including so you can see with the building permits and the development approvals, the way all that stuff works, and also how offices are organized, and even up to clients. So what we're doing now in the second half of the semester is really to more look at what happens to a project when after the design is done. So when the consultants come on, and then when we move into putting a project out for pricing, and then also or tendering, and then what an architect does during construction. But also, what we'll be talking about is certain aspects of risk, which I think you guys will find interesting. Also, hopefully not too scary for you, like the lawyer, um, like the lawyers talk. But we will have one more talk about architects. So Alan Green will come in after this lecture and talk about his experience in practice. So what he did was pretty similar to what you guys are being asked to do in terms of your assignment. So he graduated and went straight into being an architect, but slowly got himself registered. So he did the work of the architect while before he got registered, and then once he got registered, he continued doing it, grew his business, and so on and so forth. So I think there'll be some good tips there as to how one would be able to move forward in making a practice, and especially in terms of professional indemnity insurance. Okay, so today's lecture will really look at three things: types of consultants and their roles, uh, uh, the involvement of consultants at the different stages of the architectural project, and then the engagement of consultants. And after my lecture, hopefully Alan will be here, he'll take over. Then after that, we'll just spend a few minutes with a bit of feedback on the exam, and then we'll go into the tutorial stuff. Now, I showed you quite a few different consultants' drawings as part of the building approvals process, so you know what structural engineers drawings look like, you know what planning approval or development approval drawings look like, and so on and so forth. So today I'll show you a few other kinds of drawings from different types of consultants also. But let's just start with the definition. What is a consultant? So a consultant is a professional who gives expert advice for a fee. So what is a professional? A professional is someone who has gained some sort of formal knowledge about the discipline, and then does it as a job. In other words, they get paid for it. So the difference between a professional and an amateur is that the amateur is just doing it for the interest of it, and is not relying on the income that might come from the consultancy to run the office, whereas a professional is. So if we jump straight into the types of registered consultants and their role, really we start from the point of view that architects are also consultants. And as we know, architects are required to be registered, and we've been through what they need to do in excruciating detail to actually be registered. But there are also other kinds of consultants that need to be registered by law. Now, I might just talk about the difference between needing to be registered by some sort of legislation, some sort of law, meaning that the government, one level of government, one or two levels of government require certain disciplines to be registered, like architects, lawyers, doctors, but also a few others which I go through. And other professionals are also registered by professional bodies. So although the Institute of Architects, the AIA, is not a state body, they so they do not register architects under our definition, but many other professions are registered by professional bodies. Okay, so when we're looking at the registration, we just have to pay attention as to what kind of registration is it, and that will tell us a bit more about what it is. So the key thing here is whether it is registered by a state body or by a professional body, which is an NGO. So essentially, we need different kinds of consultants for many different kinds of jobs because architects do not have all the required skills to be able to finish a project, or they don't have the right kind of registration to finish to undertake a project. So the difference is that the architect is one of the consultants that overlooks a lot of the work, and they know a little bit about everything, so they're often given the role of the lead consultant, and they're certainly in a good position to be coordinating the work of all the other consultants. So all of these names, all these consultants that you see up on the screen here need to have some sort of registration. So building certifiers, we already know they are certified under the state and territory laws from the first half of the semester. And all engineers also need to be registered. Okay, so we've got geotechnical engineers who test soil and determine how strong the soil is, from which the structural engineering can then go and design structures appropriate for that soil type. Civil engineers, mechanical, electrical engineers, and hydraulic engineers. The professional body of the of engineers, the Institute of Engineers Australia, or the Institute of Engineers Australia, is a professional body, and anybody that's registered by them, that carries a certain amount of weight. However, on the same note, they also have to be registered in the states and territories. But unlike architects, they don't have an overarching national body. Our body, the AACA, everybody got that one right when they asked the question. They have different conditions under which they are registered in different states and territories. So in Queensland is a board of professional engineers, like we have a board of architects. In Victoria and Tasmania, they actually have to be registered by the Building Commission, in particular the Building Practitioners Board, which will give them, will make them a registered building professional of a certain class, so the class of engineer, and that really looks to make sure they have the right kind of education. If they're a member of the Institute of Engineers, that's a plus for them, and also whether they have professional indemnity insurance. So there's also a thing called the National Professional Engineers Register, the NPER, which is kind of like the AACA in that. Except that it's a voluntary body, so engineers who qualify will register for them, and local authorities and most territory governments actually recognize listing on the register to mean that you are a registered engineer under the requirements of the law. Also on there are land surveyors and energy assessors. Land surveyors are basically people who determine where boundaries are, topography, the topography of the site, the location of existing features, including buildings and trees and walls, and etc., etc. They also need to be registered. They are registered by the surveyors boards of the states and territories. And also energy assessors, they also need to be registered by the states and territories. So both of those engineers, surveyors, and energy assessors are all crucial to the building approval process. Now, There are a number of consultants that do not need to be registered um, for their role by law, but they do choose to be registered with professional bodies. Just going through them, flora and fauna assessors, they don't need to be registered. Urban planners and town planners don't need to be registered, but membership of the Planning Institute of Australia does help because that ensures the client of a certain level of education and experience. Interior architects don't need to be registered. Landscape architects also don't need to be registered, but they have a professional association, Australian, the Association of Landscape Architects in Australia, ILA, um, and quantity surveyors or cost engineers also don't need to be registered. They are the people who take our drawings, architectural drawings, and measure all the information in our drawings to come up with a cost of the building. So they have all the current rates of what everything costs, how much does a square meter of brick wall cost to supply and to lay. So basically that's what they do. Quantity surveyors is what we call them when they are consultants. When the same people work for builders, they're called estimators because they seem to actually not be independent because they're working for the builder. And in America, they tend to be called cost engineers. Acoustic consultants, fire services consultants, graphic designers, and many others. All of these consultants are very important for architectural projects, but not necessarily required to be registered by the state. Now, when we look at the organization of consultant firms, one of the most common organizations of them is as a sole practitioner. So at one level, it's very much like architects. Yeah, and as with many larger architecture firms, they tend to be generally as single discipline offices. So you might have a firm of engineers that has nothing but a firm of structural engineers that has nothing but structural engineers there. Well, structural and civil generally go hand in hand. Civil is about infrastructure, so it's still very much about structure, but it's about roads and dams and bridges and so on and so forth, rather than buildings. But what is common with consultant firms is that there are many different multidisciplinary offices that contain consultants. So a big one would be AECOM, who have actually have architects, engineers, and all sorts of different consultants who work for them. And the other one is the one that one of our students works for, whose name I can't remember anymore. But it is quite common, especially with engineers, to have different kinds of engineers all working together. So if you can not Lendlease, that's a construction company.
Okay.
Jack, who does Jack work for?
Oh, his dad works for them.
Anyway, Jack, we'll check with him when he gets here. So quite often this is so that clients can actually just go to one consultancy company and basically get them to do everything, all the consultancy requirements for it, including architecture and some of them. So architects might have an interior architect working in the office. They might have a graphic designer working in the office. But really, for these consultant engineers, it's much more even in the sense there's no one majority of one kind of consultant. Now, just to go through some of the things that they do. I'm going to use a few slides that Tony Trobe had in his lecture that he gave us 2 years ago. But really, when we go for development approval, when we make a development application in certain types of sites, they can be very onerous. especially the case in coastal habitats where development is new. Quite often there's a lot of overlays that one has to deal with. So you need all sorts of different consultants that you wouldn't usually use in the city. So this is a beach house that he did on the coast. It's someone called Malwo Bay. Does anyone know where that is? Yeah, it's very north or south. South Bay. Okay. So it's a beautiful coastline. You can, it's quite a sensitive coastline. So really, the clients bought the land with a view to build, but the land had not yet been built on before they bought it. There are houses around, as you will see with the next slide, but really it's what you call a sensitive site. So in this project, they had to do a flora and fauna assessment, which was required by the council, and that was really to map the kind of flora and fauna on the site to ensure that what the council thought was there. And then also the reason for that was actually for a certain type of fauna, because the flora was actually habitat for a certain type of flower, I believe. And so what they had to do is to show that their design would not actually damage the habitat of this particular kind of fauna. And this is a very formal research project. The purple line that you see up there is actually the boundary of the site, and then the green dashed lines is actually the parts of the site which needed the assessment done on it, or the research done on it, in order and that's basically where they wanted to put the house. So really, at the end of the day, what they were looking for was the distribution of certain birds based on the distribution of certain trees that those particular birds like to inhabit. So you can see in the bottom left there what they were looking for. So really, the little triangles are really where they saw powerful owls. So powerful owls is a protected species in the area which they're trying to continue to protect. And they were mapping the owls through going to look for owl pellets or going to look for owl poo, right? So that's how they actually told. That's how they could actually know that there were actually owls there, apart from seeing one. And also to look for hollow barren trees, which basically were the places where owls would nest. And then, so once they had done their research and found all this out, they then actually mapped that against the proposed development, which was two houses. They were going to build them together, but they were going to build two houses eventually. And to demonstrate that the proposed works would not affect the flora or the fauna, would not affect the hollow trees where the owls nested or the owls themselves. And you can see here that this firm Ecological also did a scenic amenity assessment. So the council had requirement that the view of the coastline should not be changed by any development. So basically what the consultants had to do, and in this case it would probably have been urban planners, is to look at the existing, look at the proposed design and write a report as to how this was not going to impact the requirements of the planning scheme to preserve the views of the coastline, so on and so forth. As you can imagine, with sensitive sites and rural sites, sewerage is a big problem. Okay, so what they then had to do is they had to get a civil engineer to design them a sewage disposal plant, or way to deal with the sewage treatment plant. In order that you wouldn't be getting raw or unprocessed sewage released into the environment and of course into the sea. And that of course included, as you can see from here, basically where the two houses are, the front pipes that go on, and basically where the septic tanks are, where the collection wells are, and then where the outlets of those are, where the outlets of those travel to, which is this this kind of dispersal pit over here, and then to show the technical things of how those things actually work. So what's supposed to happen is that the water that gets released from a septic tank is supposed to be pretty clean already, but really this is more an indication as to the kinds of chemicals that we now use in our loos, in wash our dishes and what have you. That it's no guarantee nowadays that that water is going to come out as designed before we have such powerful cleansers. So the outflow or the overflow from the septic tanks then need to be disposed in a special way. So these kinds of things, these mounds that you can see here, so it's basically got the overflow pipes actually in the mound themselves, and it actually filters through this the material in here into the ground, where it catches any last bits of any of the last nasties that need to be caught. Now, moving right along, let's have a closer look at consultants and the stages of the architectural project. And we'll start by looking at primary and specialist consultants. So this lecture is based on the architect as the primary consultant, and the primary consultant is also called the lead consultant. But this role could well be played by others. And we will look at that in week 9's lecture, because essentially the architect is often the lead consultant when they are directly appointed by the client to be the client's agent in the project that builds a building, that appoints a builder to build a building. So that's what you call a standard procurement method. But what we'll talk about in week 9 is a whole stack of different kinds of procurement methods, in which case the architect might not actually work for the client and might actually be working for the builder, or working for the client and then working for the builder, or actually working for a construction manager who could get between the architect, the client, and the builder. So there's no guarantee that the architect will be the lead consultant, but for the purposes of the Institute of Architects, they are considered lead consultants. So just keep this in mind, that there's other forms of other ways that this could happen. If we look at the Acumen website, which is the Institute's practice notes, a specialist consultant is one that is a specialist in a particular field who can contribute to a part of the part of the design. So an architect is also a specialist consultant, as well as all the other kinds of consultants that we've looked at in the last few slides. Now, the interesting thing is that really, I don't know why these two like to use the term specialist consultant, because what's the difference, between specialist and non-specialist consultant? I can't seem to see any difference. The two different kinds of consultants that they do talk about, though, as contrasting to each other, are secondary consultants and sub-consultants. Okay, and the difference between the secondary consultant and the sub-consultant is that the secondary consultant works under the direction of the lead consultant, but is engaged directly by the architect. Whereas a sub-consultant is actually directed by the lead consultant and paid by the lead consultant. We'll talk a bit more about this a bit further on. So I guess we just need to be a bit careful when we're looking at all this terms: secondary consultant, sub-consultant, specialist consultant, etc., because different people use them in different ways. So for the purpose of this, we'll be using the architect's way for the purpose of this lecture. But when we have lectures by others and they use those terms, then you just need to be a bit aware that what they mean may be different to what Acumen means. You know, builders never want to use the same terms as architects, for instance. So, I think this is fairly self-evident. We need consultants because we can't do everything ourselves for most kinds of projects. So let's just, and we need those consultants at different times of the architectural projects. So the stages here, the concept design, development design, etc. What you see there, the 6 different stages. They are the 6 standard. 6 standard services that architects provide. Remember, there was a question about standard and non-standard. So these are the standard ones. So consultants are really needed right from the beginning. So in terms of concept design, before you can really start the concept design, you need to know where the boundaries are, what the topography is, where the existing features are, so on and so forth. So you need land surveyors, you need urban planners to be advising you on planning matters. A lot of this architects often do themselves, but in certain jurisdictions this stuff can become very, very complicated, so you need planners to guide you through that. And then interior designers, you need to know whether you need an interior designer or not, or whether you're going to do it yourself. Because then that will affect how you actually design the thing, whether you design the interiors, or to what level you design the interiors. So you imagine for a house, the architect would do the interior architecture work themselves, but for something like an office building or a shopping center, you may get on specialist interior architects to actually do that work, and the architect will concentrate on the bigger picture stuff. Once you have a sketch design, a concept design, then you move into design development, and that's where you actually start to need building surveyors and structural and civil engineers and quantity surveyors. Okay, so you need to know how you're going in terms of the person who's going to be giving you a building approval. And because they're a consultant, although they're an authority, they're also a consultant, and you can work through all the issues with them during this design development stage, rather than waiting to the end when it's harder to change. Of course, you need structural and civil engineers to know how big everything is, so you know how much space you need to leave in the ceiling with the structure. You need to know how you're going to keep soil back and where the water's going to go and so on and so forth. And in larger projects, you may well have quantity surveyors on hand to keep an eye on the budget and to do estimates at each stage, so that you can advise the client as to how the design is working out with respect to cost. With simple things, it's probably quite easy. You probably know a square meter rate which you multiply across, but in more complicated things, quantity surveyors are really invaluable to keep these things on hand. Development application, obviously, you may need urban planners. That would be the people who would be involved if you couldn't do it yourself. And then in documentation, that's where you really, what am I trying to say? That's where you finalize the structure, and then of course there's the back and forth as to how that works with everything. So you still need the engineers to come back, and everybody's still involved. In contractor selection, by the time you go to contractor selection, you really already know that the project is going to be able to get building approval because you've had the building certifier working for you all the way through. Another set of eyes looking at the project may find other things. So all these people need to be on hand. So if tenderers or builders who are pricing the project need information, they can deal directly with the consultants while also keeping the architect in the loop. And then the final stage, being contract admin, is you really need the people who need to inspect and certify their work, such as the building certifiers who need to see everything before it's filled out the concrete, but also the structural engineers who will want to make sure that the steel they put in before the steel they cover up is actually precise. Now, what was interesting about, and I will tell him next year, but what was interesting about Greg Breckenridge's lecture was, you remember that example where they were casting this cantilever pool, yeah, and then basically they didn't put in enough reinforcing, or there wasn't enough coverage, and when they took off the formwork, the thing collapsed and injured someone badly. I actually, when I was writing the, at the time I was thinking, gee, this is kind of confusing, and I was asking about the difference between supervision and superintendence, and I asked him the question, and he didn't give us a proper answer. So what I did when I was writing, just trying to distract myself when I was writing the exam, was that I actually just Googled the case, and the whole thing came up. And the story there was actually that the architect was acting as the builder. Okay, so the architect was actually getting subcontractors to do the work, and so in that case, the architect actually was supervising the project because the architect was the builder, and that's why the architect got what was liable for it, not liable as an architect, but liable as a builder. So what I'm going to do next year is
That's important.
That's very important, isn't it? That's really important. So this then I thought, oh God, what else has he got wrong? And actually that's the only thing. But what I'll do next year, I think, is I just have to pull out the important points, and actually pull out the. Oh, there was another one that I got wrong. The one Dimmicks versus the architect. Essentially, what happened is that the architects specified the wrong screws. Architects specified the wrong screws. So it was an aluminium roof sheet onto steel trusses. So he specified galvanized steel screws. And what happens is that if you have aluminium and galvanized steel in contact with each other, when there's rain, it sets up a current which promotes the corrosion of the aluminium. So the architect screwed up in that one, which he didn't really say, did he?
Does it sound justified? Like, that makes sense now. We don't have to have the irrational fear of just getting done for a reason.
That's right. So those.
Was it against the manufacturing instructions? Did he specify just leave it in a spec that was old?
I don't know whether I don't know what I don't know what the manufacturer recommended or specified in those days, because that was 1985.
Right.
But because that freaked me out completely, and I'm doing a project right now, and so I looked it up because I'm using a ColourBond roof, and basically what Lysart or ColourBond now says, they give you very specific instructions now as to what to use and what not to use, right down to the fixings, whereas I don't think they did in those days.
That seems pretty rough that he would have to know that about chemistry as well. But anyway.
That's right, but he should know, because when I was doing Tech 3, when I was a student, we learned about this stuff, and I still have the textbook which tells me about the galvanic scale. Yeah. So for ColourBond, basically you can't have ColourBond or zinc aluminum in contact with lead flashing or copper flashing, because that will promote the corrosion of the ColourBond roof. Okay. Moving right along. The interesting thing about architecture, though, is for smaller and more straightforward projects, architects, builders, and subcontractors may perform the role of some consultants. Okay, so what we need to remember as a preface to that statement is that electricians and plumbers are registered persons also. So they need to be registered in order to do the work. And once they've done the work, they need to lodge their work with the various authorities. So with the plumbers, they need to basically get in touch with the water authority, actually in or Icon Water nowadays in ACT, to update the sewer drawings. I checked this on MyRail recently, and they actually did it, so that was really good. The electricians provide a certificate of electrical safety for the works they have done. Okay, so both of those people are registered people. So in small jobs where it's quite simple, like most domestic jobs, generally we don't have hydraulic engineers to work out our plumbing, and we don't have electrical engineers to work out our wiring and what have you. Okay, so in that case, when you're doing a house job, a domestic job, you don't need those two consultants. But it goes beyond that. I worked on a project once where it was a completely timber framed house, and all of the members were selected from AS 1684 Residential Timber Framing Code, and the building surveyor accepted that because it had all come straight out of the standard, that we didn't need to have a structural engineer involved, because we're not trying to do anything adventurous in that case. And on the same note, builders, in most architectural specifications, builders are also required to build according to that code. And in terms of if an engineer is required, if there's a steel lintel or if there's concrete or what have you, then they can use the engineer's material, but really they still have to build to the code. So for small buildings, then this means that you can really cut down the number of consultants that you need. Okay, just to go through the engagement of consultants as the last stage of this. Just a recap of how Acumen refers to things. We've got lead consultants and specialist consultants. So the lead consultants coordinate everybody, all communications go through them. Here they contribute between the client, the builder, and the consultants. And the secondary and sub consultants are the ones that work under them. Now, so I suppose a big deal with larger jobs as far as architects go is how consultants are engaged. So consultants can be selected by clients, by the client or the architect. So there's no legal reason as to who actually should or can appoint or select the consultants. But because it is a complicated business, architects generally have a pool of consultants that they've worked with before, which they prefer to work with because those consultants, their performance is known, how fast they are, how slow they are, how easy it is to get them on the phone, or how hard it is, etc., etc. So all these decisions need to be made. I mean, why would you go with a consultant that's dicking you about? Maybe because that consultant does really good work, designs this really small structure, really fine things, which it makes it easier for the architecture to happen. So you might put up with that despite the fact that that consultant is slow and you can just imagine. I've got an engineer like that. I can see when I ring up, I can just see him looking at a phone and just putting it down. It's gotten to the stage where I had to Google him and call his landline because he has no call recognition on his landline. But I digress as usual. So I think it's important when a client has a certain consultant they want to use that the architect makes sure that they are happy to work with that particular consultant. The architect then needs to make sure that they are the right kind of consultants, they have the right skills, they have the right infrastructure in order to deliver the consultancy and so on and so forth. Right? Because it may be a mate of the clients, that's all fine and well, but they need to be able to do the job, they need to be the right person. So it's the architect's job to make sure that the group of consultants is actually one that's going to be able to get the job done. As jobs get bigger, basically it becomes easier to get consultants, because then you're not getting a consultant, you're getting a consultant firm. Okay, and consultant firms have credentials, are generally already credentialed. So if you go to Arab, you know what you're getting. If you go to ACOM, you know what you're getting, and so on and so forth. So in those cases, client bodies, because now we're talking about large commercial and institutional organizations, may actually call for proposals for certain type of consultants, as they might for architects. Now, the alternatives to this are just to negotiate with one consultant, or to have a limited call proposals. So when you have a government job, generally they want more than one price. So the job of the architect is really to try and make sure that there's a good outcome for the project by perhaps trying to suggest a short list of consultants that could go on it, rather than putting it out to the public tender, where you might get someone who works in a really low price but not be able to do the job. For institutional clients, they may have a pre-vetted list of consultants that the particular client will use, or pre-registered consultants for their projects. So, like the University of Canberra will work with a certain pool of consultants, and those consultants, before they go on the panel of consultants, they need basically to jump through all these hoops to prove their bona fides and their ability to do the work and what have you. Then for the university, it's just easy. When they need someone, they just basically have a way of choosing a consultant. Yeah? So they give everybody a go. They don't need to. They will tell you how they choose consultants, but generally they try to use all the consultants that are on their panel or on their list. Now, the engagement of consultants is really based on risk and based on minimizing the lead consultant's exposure. Really, I talked about the two ways of engaging consultants. The first way being that the client engages all of the different consultants directly, but that those consultants are coordinated, their work is coordinated by the lead consultant. The other way is for the client to basically engage a group of consultants as a job lot, as it were, as with one fee. So the advantages of getting all your consultants for one price is that for clients there's only one fee to pay, and this is generally better for inexperienced clients because there's a lot to get your head around. So generally, what happens in these cases is that the lead consultant puts the panel together, generally the architect. And basically, if the architect puts together a group of consultants that they've worked with before or that they're used to, then problems can be resolved with other clients because they've worked with those consultants before. They have confidence in the professional abilities of those consultants, and the definition of their roles and responsibilities. So all these things are controlled by the architects or the lead consultants. So they basically write the rules and regulations for this kind of team, much like your team contract that you've written for your assignments. However, what happens is that liability can become shared between all consultants. And the architects then become responsible for the consultant's fees, and it may cause also complications with the professional indemnity, because that actually then becomes the responsibility of the architect check. And then also the architect has to run the admin costs, the accounting costs of getting, of making sure that everyone is paid and putting up the invoices to the clients. So in that sense, it is better for the architect if the client is engaging the consultants directly. These consultants may still be chosen by the architects, but if the client is in a direct contractual relationship with the consultants, then they are just liable to each other. The worst thing that can happen for the architect is the work is not done, which is pretty bad, but at least there's no financial risk there. So if you have someone who screws up when the client just engages one group as a single entity, then it becomes the lead architect's responsibility. So really what happens when you have experienced clients, they tend to have all this stuff sorted out, and they tend to enter into direct agreements with the consultants that they work for, and that's actually a better outcome for the architect in terms of risk. So, are there any questions on consultants and who they are, what they are, how they relate to each other? No questions? Okay, very good. Let's have a little break while we wait for Alan to turn up. Actually, I might just